that maths, there's no one subject maths. There are two. And we teach the one, and we don't teach the other one. And we're supposed to teach the other one, not the one we do. So the one is instrumental mathematics, when you learn routines and then you learn how to apply them. So tip and times, and y squared equals whatever. Yeah? That's procedural mathematics. Anybody can do that, but everyone gets so terrified about the way we teach it, they can't even breathe when they're faced with those sort of tests. The most important one is called relational mathematics. When you actually learn to express relations between things that you notice. And it's the most exciting thing, and we're all really good at it. Now, I had to learn to be good at it. Maths degree and all that, I had to still learn because no one had taught me that when I was at school. So I'm excited you're having this, and I'm hoping before I die that the child abuse that's happening stops. So let's try and find a way. It's happening everywhere, and you're probably all as guilty as I am. Some of your questions, thoughts? Massive gaps. They're not massive gaps, they're massive procedural gaps where poor children can't remember whatever was that the grade 5 teacher taught them. I had a grade 8 boy who's really, really perfect, as all children are, and he asked me what 4/3 plus 4/3 was. I said to him, why are you asking me that question? His head of maths followed me and whacked him on the head and said, look, I've taught you how to add fractions. And so the poor guy, he's got such a sense of anxiety, he can't even think. So he said 8/6. You know, he was trying to just find the procedure to fill in. He said, who taught you last year, you know? In the meantime, the poor guy, he's been taught how to add fractions probably since grade 4. And no one's worked out that there's no point in teaching procedures. It's a waste of time. I currently believe you shouldn't even be taught arithmetic. I used to believe passionately you should be taught tables and bonds as a minimum. I now no longer believe that. I think it's rubbish. Let's stop teaching arithmetic. Let's allow kids to be the geniuses that they all are. I haven't met a kid for 30 years when I was told on a jet by a guy called Michael Shire, Ian, you need to understand, all children think perfectly. I remember saying to him, good, Michael, you must come see my grade 10 ESET. He said, no, Ian, you're not listening to me. You have to listen to children, and I promise you, you won't find one who can't think perfectly. I haven't found one, except people with brain damage, maybe, who can't think perfectly. It's your ability to follow the child, let them experience it, let them think. So what's the biggest thing in learning? The biggest thing, number one, top thing, is emotional. It's an emotional, it's not a cognitive thing. It's one of the saddest things, Sean, that I ever found. Sean helped me once. I was headmaster for 4 years as punishment by the head of maths because I kept on telling her that we weren't doing well enough. And so I called in 2 psychologists and I worked with these 20 kids and their parents. I think we solved all of them. One of them got a very nice BCom degree and he still visits me. Sad thing for me, but it's actually quite an exciting thing. Every single one of them was a social or an emotional issue. Not one of them had anything to do with the ability of those boys to think, and they'd all failed maths for 4 years. So you try and write a maths test in half an hour that's full of all stuff that terrifies you and has just been drilled at you by some abuser. That's just the massive gap. So I don't believe there are any maths gaps. Progression, I think we should, allowing people to progress because they got 50% for maths at the end of grade 9. What's that? That's child abuse. What is a maths test that anyone sets, including me? And I've set, sadly, many of the matric exams in this country in maths and ad maths. It's child abuse to think that getting 50% or 90% or 10% on some silly maths test that's a bunch of routines with no understanding has got any meaning. But no, what do? We say, no, you are stupid and you need to repeat the year. And let's tell your grandmother and your mother, and just to make sure we finish you off forever. Whereas we should have this mindset that every single bloody child's perfect. Some of them have different rates of maturity. And we just need to monitor their maturity level as they're going. Not regularly. Just notice it. And it's an opportunity for a child and for a teacher. If you find a child, if you're lucky enough to find a child in a grade 8 maths class who's quite immature, it's a huge opportunity for you to accelerate that child's growth. These so-called clever ones, they're so-called. There's no such thing as the bright ones. I heard two of you saying the bright kids and the bright. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a bright kid or a stupid kid. They're not. They're all the same. They're all perfect. They can't all get the same mark on your rotten tests, but they're all perfect. And it's time you realize it. Why don't we see this happening? Why don't we see this stuff actually happening? Cap, you and me, we keep implementing this disastrous child abuse as if it's fine. Once I threw the maths curriculum out for 4 years at Pilton College. We didn't do any maths, grade 8, 9, 10, and 11. None. When their last project was the maths exam, they found it quite simple. They hadn't done any trigonometry, they hadn't done any factorizing. We didn't do any of that. We did a whole lot of relational understanding. Companies in the world at the moment. So they didn't do any curriculum for grade 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's actually, we have the power. We don't have to. So CAPS is one of the problems. Testing. What are we doing giving these poor kids timed tests? Regularly. Some of them we call block tests. Some of them we call exams. Usually block tests and exams for grade 8. It's child abuse. Why maths? I used to think why maths was being a math graduate and so on. You sort of think, okay, what was that? Well, remember, I came up and I got a procedural maths degree. I didn't have a real one. So the one that I got, which is worthless, I should actually go and tear the paper up because it was worthless. It was really hard, and I suffered a lot. There was a lot of anxiety, but it's actually worthless. Because all it was a bunch of procedures. And they just got more and more hieroglyphically and more apparently difficult. But they weren't. They were actually quite simple. If you suffered the pain of trying to learn all these stupid rules. So I only realized about 10 years later that there was this thing called relational maths, which is actually really good fun and everybody can do it. And even me. You know, I had a maths degree, so I always thought I could do maths, and it was a real shock to realize that I couldn't. I mean, all I knew how to do was pass exams in maths, and that doesn't help anybody. Someone said sequence. So the only thing that's important in sequence stuff is sequence of logical development. So maths and logics, that's the only real reason that I can see at the moment for allowing maths into the curriculum. Because maths is so highly related to logics, and as you're developing cognitively, provided you're doing the understanding thing, not the procedural stuff, you're actually developing your ability to think. So maybe we should keep maths in the syllabus. I'm not sure about that. But if we do, I think it's got a place because it's so related to logical development. Right. Self-directed computers, don't agree at all. I have never found a computerized, self-directed thing that makes any difference, certainly in the child abuse. It doesn't help with the child abuse because the kids don't do better at child abuse, so they don't do better in procedural exams. I don't think, unless it's some form of open-ended investigative stuff, it won't help with your conceptual development either. But so even Khan Academy, sadly, and I'm a great user of it, or tried to a lot, it has virtually no impact. So that doesn't work in my experience. What should you do?
Thank you.
Thanks.
What you should do is you should start learning how to listen to children. You have to do lots of preparation, so you've got to find exciting, rich, open-ended ways that they can start researching and thinking for themselves. So I've seen, last week I was at a conference with a few people here. We saw 4 and 5-year-old kids with lots of preparation and planning. Then the kids just research and research and research, and they find stuff that's way beyond what you would expect a child to do. So I would put in a lot of rich, open-ended stuff, and then learn how to manage that stuff. So there'll be very little teaching. You also need to plan the curriculum a lot so that it is rich enough, but then you need to be able to change it every day. You need to be able to take away any form of tests and exams for as long as possible. I mean, the only one at the moment, but some people are now starting to convince me you don't even have to write that one, is the matric exam. Because I think there is an argument that the matric exam, remember I've said some, is a waste of time. It's actually a fairly trivial test. It should be something much harder than that. But we all bought into this. So remember, we've all been abused.